G'day, I'm Matthew Mason-Cox, President of the New South Wales Legislative Council. Today I want to introduce you to a gentleman called Blaxland. No, not the explorer Gregory, who you're probably thinking of, but his older and equally successful brother, John. John Blaxland can be seen as one of the 8 impressive marble figures lining the walls of our upper house at New South Wales Parliament. A notable member of the Legislative Council for 15 years, he's actually the first immortal in this video series who was not a president of this place, and you can tell by how his likeness is dressed. While President Hay from our previous video can be seen wearing presidential robes, John appears in a toga-like fashion, something suitably official to indicate his standing, and a tradition adopted for other members immortalised in marble here. This bust of John was actually the very first marble bust installed in the chamber. It was donated by his daughter Louisa Blaxland in 1870, being crafted by well-known English sculptor Joseph Durham. The members of the day took the gift incredibly seriously and tasked the House's Standing Orders Committee to investigate and report on the best way to position it in the chamber. We have an illustration showing the bust's initial positioning very high up upon the wall. However, the committee may have got it wrong, because along the way all of the marble busts came to be relocated much further down the walls. So now a bit about John himself. He arrived in Sydney from Kent, England in 1807, shortly after his younger brother Gregory. The brothers came out at the encouragement of Sir Joseph Banks and were among the first settlers to arrive who weren't sent by the British government, either as convicts or to a commissioned post. They came bearing letters from the government though, requesting the governor provide land, convict manpower and livestock, in addition to what they sailed over with. This was to build their agricultural capacity, and John would ultimately become one of the pioneers of Australia's now renowned cattle industry. Of particular note, when John first arrived, he found himself at odds with then Governor William Bligh. The two would argue over John's claim he wasn't provided with everything the government had promised, and the governor's belief that John was too self-interested. The grievance came to a head when John allied himself with Captain John MacArthur and Major George Johnson as a part of the Rum Rebellion, which in 1808 was Australia's first and only military coup. Both Blaxland brothers' signatures are on the document calling for Governor Bligh's arrest, but perhaps that's a story for another time. In regard to the Legislative Council, John was appointed in 1829 and remained a member until 1844. His work was much respected and earned him the nickname Protector of the Public Purse, because he frequently pushed back on attempts by the Imperial government to impose their expenses on the colonies' government. With a focus on the rights of private colonists and being in favour of industry, John often found himself in conflict with civic-minded governors, but his vocal opposition served him well. In fact, Governor George Gipps, who came into power in 1837, reportedly quite appreciated John's presence because it removed the need for any Crown-appointed opposition to sit in the council and appeared to reduce public dislike of the council in its early years. Upon John's resignation, he was presented with a note of appreciation from the council commending his contributions to upholding the constitutional rights of the colonists, which was signed by 300 members of the public. Now, before we wrap up this video, it would be remiss of me not to mention one final important fact. Among his many land parcels, John held 1 acre on the eastern end of Sydney. While he was on a long trip back to England in about 1810, the new Governor Lachlan Macquarie managed to persuade John's wife to hand it back over. Macquarie would use this land as a location for his ambitious new hospital, the famous Rum Hospital, which of course was eventually transformed into the New South Wales Parliament, the very spot where I sit today.